Belichick, early 70s, and this 24-year-old is a hot babe on top of that. Now, I think that gives him the edge over every coach in terms of the intangibles.
It's going to be
While
used.
Dabo's looking up in the sky waiting for divine intervention, this guy's thinking, as soon as this game's over, I'm getting laid by a 24-year-old hottie. Edge Belichick. And then you would have to say, whenever you did one of those things about who has the advantage, offense versus defense, you're going to see the coaching box. And what happens when Bill Belichick is going against Mario Cristobal at the University of Miami? I mean, who's going to have a giant – that would be like triple check marks, enough to eclipse every other advantage that the Miami Hurricanes might have in that spot. I always go back to our good friend Al Bernstein and the word intriguing. I think this is a very intriguing proposition to see Belichick at North Carolina.
You bring up Cristobal because you're going to watch games and go, oh, sorry, Cristobal. See him up against, and I can't stand Belichick, but you would think X's and O's wise. He's definitely not going to have a problem kneeling.
Yes. No, he wouldn't have been handing the ball off in that spot.
And he wouldn't have kicked that field goal. Remember, he's the one that went for it on 4th and 5 from his 20 because he did the math. Like, if he has Cam Ward, he's not kicking a field goal there.
No, nobody in their right mind is kicking a field goal there. It's insane.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Happy New Year, everybody. We start out 2025 with a little bit of a technical glitch, although it was self-created, self-sabotage on the part of one Mike Lubie Lubitz. But it happens, man. I mean, it's a new year. We haven't been doing much of this the last couple of weeks. We really took advantage of the holidays and just the opportunity to maybe goof off for a couple of weeks. And I had a good time. We were intermittently with you with other shows and other projects. But nonetheless, back with you for 2025. And what was it? You didn't have the volume
I had
button
the
on?
volume to hear you all the way down. We got a new board, and I was messing with board.
Oh, okay.
And never even looked
That
at
might have been
it.
subliminal. Yeah. Who wants to hear from this little fat fuck? Anyway, we're glad you guys do, and we have some changes on the horizon here. My mind keeps going through them changes, which I think are going to be not only beneficial for us, Mike Lubie Lubitz, but I think it's going to be a big upgrade for the viewer and/or / listener to the program, and there'll be more opportunities to see what we're doing, and we may even have a bit of an ability to throw some, dare I say this, Libby, production values into the show. Not that it's going to be some kind of circus, but there are some opportunities there. So hopefully that'll unfold in the next week or so as we're working on this as we speak. So look forward to that. We'll keep you informed on everything that's happening with the program here. But I do believe that it'll infuse a new level of enthusiasm and intellect into the program, Libby, that we otherwise might be shirking after doing this in this fashion for the number of years that we have. Dave Hyde is going to join us later on. There's a lot to discuss here. Now, this is interesting because if you flip on the TV early in the morning, Libby, I don't know if you do you leave the TV on while you're sleeping? Because I sleep to the news.
No, I've never been a
night.
fan of that.
Yeah, either sports news on ESPN, Sports Center, Endless Loop, or whatever news offering is available to me, depending on what time I wake up, which is not necessarily because I have to take a piss. I don't know. It's not one of those old age things, Libby. Is it a throwback? Do you find this yourself after doing years and years of morning drive work, which is kind of an obsolete principle at this point? I don't know. Do people even drive to work? I guess they do. If you look at the roads, they're not exactly a clear path, as they say in the NBA. But yeah, I mean, do you find you wake up a couple of times a night just in horror, like Colonel Kurtz, thinking, "Oh fuck, I overslept," and then it's like only 2 a.m. You're thinking, "Oh great, I get to go back to sleep for like another 3-4 hours," which is good. But yeah, I mean, it definitely can be treacherous. Waking up in the middle of the night a couple of times. But when I'm watching the news this morning, all the way from the wee hours, Lubie, if you look at what's happening around the rest of the country weather-wise, it's abysmal at best. I mean, unless you're just one of those Floridians that says, "Hey, I've never seen snow before." Well, if you have been in blizzard conditions where cars have no traction whatsoever, trucks are just hydroplaning across the highway, all twisted up with no control whatsoever, 20-car pileups, blizzard, as they say, blowing in your face, frostbite, your fingers are coming off. You don't need this shit, right? So the question would be this, Lubie. with what's going on around the country, and the fact that I think the high today is supposed to be right around 80 degrees, believe it or not. Is that possible? 80 degrees? Because there's this cold snap they keep
Yes.
threatening us with, which I guess is going to bring temperatures down by Wednesday. But here we are on Monday, and I thought I saw the high predicted to be 80 degrees. All right, so let's say it's we'll compromise. We'll whack off 5 degrees, make it 75. Uh, why would anybody want to leave Florida if they were already here? And yet that is now the hot story that everybody wants to fuck out of here. And I'm talking about what? Two of your favorite players, Tyreek Hill and Jimmy Butler. Who would want to leave here, Lubie, at this point in time? I mean, and venture off to maybe Jimmy Butler. What's he going to do? Go to the Milwaukee Bucks? Did you see what it looked like there in Missouri and Wisconsin and all of these Midwest states, Ohio? It was ugly, my friend. Ugly. You don't want any part of it. And then now Tyreek Hill says he's done here. Now that was the aftermath of losing to the Jets in somewhat pathetic fashion. Not a great representative showing. You couldn't have expected Huntley to have the same kind of throwing efficiency that he did when he went 22 of 26 the week prior against the lowly Cleveland Browns on the road. And everybody was saying, "Hey, well, look at that. This Mike McDaniel coached him up," which maybe he did for that game. But there's a reason that you saw a lot of pathetic play all around the National Football League yesterday, and that's because there aren't 32 quality starting quarterbacks, and there certainly aren't 32 quality backup quarterbacks. Yesterday was a day to back up, and wow. Talk about some atrocities that you were watching being committed out there. That being said, yes, was Chris Greer responsible for not having a backup quarterback? I was thinking about this, though, Lubie, as you're going to be calling for his head here in a minute. And I'll give you the platform to go ahead and spew whatever negativity you want about Stephen Ross's quick decision. This is Black Monday. This is when teams make changes in the National Football League. And while several coaches didn't survive the season, right? You had the Jets. They fired Robert Saleh. The Saints. They got rid of Allen and the Bears. Eberflus gone. Patriots now fired Gerard Mayo after one season. Wow, is there a parallel there? If Jimbo hadn't won the national championship, the coach in waiting, you would have to think that Belichick is laughing. And you played that Belichick clip coming into the show. I mean, wouldn't it be ironic if he just told North Carolina, "Hey, look, I was only kidding." He ended up back with the Patriots. That's not happening. We know that. I would. Is there anybody out there that would even venture to wager that Belichick returns to the Patriots as their new head coach? Not. At a 0.0 chance. So if you're betting that, you are an absolute moron, a fool. Well, we don't want to cast a negative shadow over our degenerate friends that would go ahead and venture a wager on something that had zero chance of happening, 0.0 Plutarski. But anyway, so it's Black Monday today around the National Football League, but not here. The Sunshine State, Lubie. And this is where you enter. All right, so that announcement comes quickly. I don't think it was any stunning surprise. In defense of Chris Greer, you could say this, that his now was Jonnu Smith a free agent acquisition? I want to say yes to that. Free agent acquisition. He did not trade for Jonnu Smith, but he did sign Jonnu Smith. Okay, that turned out to be a great move. And people were absolutely lambasting the Chop Robinson pick in the middle of the first round, talking about, well, this guy's, a middle second rounder, the usual stuff that you get on these kind of conversations. Like it matters, right? I mean, if the guy can play, who gives a fuck where you grabbed him, right? I mean, if the guy turns out to be a long-term starter for you and you happen to draft him in the first round when you could have got him in the second round, you were privy to a lot of these and a participant in a lot of these lame arguments, right? A caller would call up. You're finally getting the telephone call on a radio show, and the guy says, well, I mean, I know Chop Robinson's a good player, but they could have got him in the second round. You used to subscribe to this kind of shit, Ruby, no?
Like, to me, if a guy is graded at a certain place to overreach. Now, look, if they end up being a good player, fine, but a lot of the time they don't. So that's the thing.
Most of the time they don't. And that's true of all draft picks, though. Most of them never really fulfill the anticipated greatness that the GM was telling you they would achieve easily and demonstrated immediately in their opening game at the press conference following the draft, where they said, "Well, we got everything we wanted." It's very much like the recruiting press
Yeah.
conferences we often reference. All right, so Stephen Ross comes out with an immediate, emphatic vote of confidence, Lubie, for two of your favorites, Chris Greer, who did draft Chop Robinson, who turned out to be a good player, and signed Jonnu Smith in free agency. So two moves that you would figure if you already had a solid core of championship caliber and playoff caliber, high level playoff caliber players, that would have been a pretty solid offseason, would it not, Lubie? I mean, he did lose guys that were crucial and great for other teams, including your man Van Ginkel, who, wow, I mean, just a playmaking, one of these guys that doesn't look overly imposing as a linebacker, does he? Rip Van
Look, he was a
Ginkel
guy
there?
that was underdrafted. It wasn't even drafted at all. And he turned into being a really good defensive player, and he showed a lot of signs of that with the Dolphins.
Yeah, oh, no, he was a good player. I think
He
they
was a
liked
good
him,
player.
no question.
They weren't sure if he was worth the money that he was getting. It actually wasn't a lot of money, so he clearly was worth it.
Yeah.
And we've seen what he's done to become a Pro Bowler in Minnesota.
I'm blanking. Giuseppe.
He's
I was
with
blanking on Giuseppe.
Phins.
You know, also, I mean, was another guy that they had little faith in, and every time I see him, he's doing something that is absolutely crucial to whatever success his team might have. All right, so they're both coming back. Dave Hyde's going to join us in a couple of minutes. So, what did you think, Lubie, when you saw that?
You know what I think? I wanted Greer gone for years. I got to the point this year where I lost faith in McDaniel. To then play the way they played yesterday, I get it. They knew early on that they weren't going to the playoffs. Okay, but you should still win the game. It's the Jets. You still want to win the game. The way that they lost, where the defense was just a sieve and the offense couldn't put in the end zone for most of the game, to then right after that.
Kind of froze up on me there, Lubie. I don't know if you're still going.
I'm back. I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to look. A lot of people that say Stephen Ross doesn't care about winning. It's hard for me to fight them now. Like, that was weird. I get the idea. You can't just keep turning over organizations, but that's not what's happening here. Like, you have people running the organization that can't run it. Like, these people have run it into the ground again. Why would you trust that they would be the ones to fix it? Like, that's the thing. Like, that's what's weird to me is we're here because of them, but they're going to make it better. Like, what? Like, it's a disaster. Like, it's a mess. Like,
This year literally was a disaster. To finish under 500 with that team after the investment that they made and the people that they wanted to keep around, understandable. Okay, injuries happen; they're part of the ball game, and that was one of the question marks, a giant one, question mark in the Mysterians with your man Tua Tagovailoa, who proved that he was vastly superior to anything else that the Dolphins might be able to throw out there on the field, including. And seems like a really decent guy, so you hate to be disparaging about a backup quarterback who wasn't able to carry the load. He did win a game against an inept Browns team, but nonetheless, I mean, how can you blame Huntley for not being able to do anything offensively? McDaniel, I thought was coming back. I thought maybe they might look into getting rid of Chris Greer. I believe that Stephen Ross has got so much money, Lubie, that he is blinded to the point where he only, and maybe this is a good place to be coming from, whether you're impoverished or a zillionaire like Stephen Ross, and that is to only see the positives. Should that not be one of our resolutions here on the show? He saw the development, the evolving Chop Robinson play, which by the end of the year, I mean, if you listen to any broadcast, it didn't matter if it was the Homer announcers, which, by the way, I did catch a little bit of the end of the game on the radio yesterday. Wow. I mean, you would have thought that it was a wake. It was unbelievable. And they were trying to find the positives, of course. They're like a minute to go. They're losing to the dreadful Jets, who just got shellacked by the Buffalo Bills in a game that mattered the week before. Where is your pride, Miami Dolphins? Where is Dolphin/eat culture? Where is it, by the way? How come Jimmy Butler he was the epitome of heat culture this month? I don't want to say, I mean, and then, just spit in the face of the great Pat Riley, saying, Pat, it's almost like, he was in Goodfellas, and he was Maury the Wig Man.
Well, it's
I
just,
want my
well,
money
that's the
back.
thing is, it's
Where's
like
my
all these Heat fans are bitching because they haven't been able to get a superstar. That would almost be a valid reason to be pissed if you're Butler, but Butler hasn't made a mention of that at all. Like, the reality is, anyone who's covering this, it says he wants his extension, but again, he isn't playing games. This was the prove it year, and it's like,
Yeah.
dude, they didn't say they wouldn't pay you. They said, show us. Like, the Heat don't pay for past performances. That's just not who they are. They never have been that organization. They're not going to start now. Like, the good organizations never do. Like, it.
At 36, that was high risk if you weren't going to at least watch another season and try to measure the guy's level of commitment, which seemed to be declining gradually. Although always capable as well, or not always, but for the most part, capable of just rising to the occasion when important things were happening and his play was needed at its optimum level. He was able to do that many times for the Miami Heat. Thus, has the Heat been an overwhelmingly good-looking team in terms of, wow, I mean, who can beat these guys? Not for a long time. I mean, even in the LeBron days, right? You got Chris Bosh, a Hall of Famer, Dwayne Wade, Hall of Famer, LeBron James, arguably the best ever to do this, and with the longevity factor and the high level of play over this long period of time. You remember Michael with the Wizards,
Yeah.
Lubie?
Yep.
Now we had that ridiculous hiatus, which nobody ever. David Stern, I'm going to say, yeah, we haven't seen much of Stern lately, so I almost thought maybe
He
maybe he
died.
passed
Didn't he die
away.
a few years ago? Yeah.
He did.
David
Stern
Stern
is
died a few
dead.
years ago. I think so.
He
Yeah.
did. Get out of here, Stern.
He died in 2020.
Wow, why did
It was around COVID. He died January 2020.
Oh, how did I miss his death?
COVID happened. We sort of were focused a little bit.
Okay. And as I was talking about Stern, I was thinking, well, wait a minute, maybe the guy fucking checked out. Is
4
that
years.
possible? Yep. Yes. So you have confirmed that. You're like Hank Goldberg used to. Hank Goldberg has confirmed somebody else's work. And what was the obsession with that? Breaking stories, and they still do this on ESPN. Like, they'll steal a story from somebody. What's wrong with just saying, hey, you know what? The New York Times had this first, way ahead of us. We never even would have imagined this would happen. They got to put up like one of their reporters was formerly Woj. Woj has confirmed that the other guy's story is true. All right. Great stuff. But yeah, I mean, Stern then went to his grave without ever telling us. So whether Jordan was doing so much gambling that at the time where gambling was taboo, and the last thing that you would want to do is think for 1 second that that you were looking at this in any kind of a positive way, how it negatively might influence the league. He went to his grave and denied that was ever in play, Libby. We're going to run because Dave Hyde's going to join us. That's always a pleasure. And we'll see what he thinks. We didn't really get to the bottom of your venom here.
I'm laissez-faire at this point. Like, Ross literally, he didn't even give it time to think about it. They've just lost to a rival that was a fucking disaster this year. And we're going to come back again. It's like, okay, Ross. Like, I literally am at the point where it's like, fuck this organization.
Didn't even consider.
I don't get. What are you keeping them for? Like, this was the year they were supposed to get better. They got worse. You didn't work on the offensive line or the backup quarterback, and those two areas literally ended your season.
Yeah. Giant step backwards this year. I mean, a quantum leap into the abyss. All right, coming back with the great Dave Hyde of the Sun Sentinel in a moment. 8:36.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305 4.
This comes from the great Defo Llama. It's the bets you don't make, the chances you don't take that can compromise an otherwise incredible life, my friend.
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on The Defo Show.
I'm glad I didn't make one bet yesterday, Lubie. Word came from inside the Jocks room at Gulfstream Park that the sixth ball was alive at 19-1. And fortunately, I was not in any kind of a position and or financial situation where that would have been favorable for me to go ahead and wager on this pig. And after every other horse had finished, this horse decided to cross the finish line. All right, this guy's never late to the party. And we always love having him on, and you couldn't ask for a better day to try and get some rational perspective from the sporting icon from the Sun Sentinel, their outstanding columnist. The great Dave Hyde joins us here on the show. David, how are you, my friend?
I'm awful this morning. Are you kidding me? Look what happened. Look what's happening to this sports world. The two big stars in town, Jimmy Butler and Tyreek Hill, want out. The Dolphins are a flaming mess right now. And you're asking how I am in the new year. Come on.
Yes, because it was the absolute reverse philosophy. And you turned us on to this, that winning and prosperity sells far more than misery. Which, being in talk radio for those many years, we naturally tried to fan the flames of the negative to the point where you had everybody in a frenzy. They were ready to storm the fucking Capitol building. I mean,
well, you got to make everybody a little angry in that part of the talk radio. First, make them angry, but then you got to. If you have winning teams, it's a lot easier to. That's what draws listeners. As I said for years, the Patriots writers were writing books while we were writing obituaries down here.
Great line, David. I hope you throw that out there.
I repeat it many days. Like it's my go-to line about this whole mess.
Real good. All right. So here's what happened. And as you mentioned, we were talking about this in relation to the weather. Everybody wants to come to Florida, except for our sports superstars. They want out. Now, this Tyreek Hill thing yesterday, I don't know if that came as any great surprise. You could brush it off and say that it was frustration maybe from having a losing season and not having the kind of numerology that he's posted in the past. And yet, this is the great thing about Stephen Ross. And you've spoken with him, I would imagine. Have you done many one-on-ones or small group
when he
interviews
first
with
bought
Ross?
the team, back-to-back years, I went up to New York when the Dolphins were playing there and spent like an hour each time in his office, the related group. And so I talked to him at length, and I really like him. I still like Steve Ross. He just doesn't talk anymore. He got that losing syndrome that's made him go underground, and he never surfaces except for announcements like yesterday where he says he's bringing back Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer for another year. So, he's at a loss at what to do, obviously, because you look at his hires, they haven't exactly been inspired with the Dolphins from when he started in 2009. He had two good ideas, Jim Harbaugh and Sean Payton. Both of those collapsed in total embarrassment for the franchise for other reasons. But the guys he's hired just haven't been very good.
Chris Greer, you would hardly say, has been a dynamic presence here in town. He did make a couple of good moves to give him credit. The Jonnu Smith signing was great. And Chop Robinson, who was being panned as a disaster of a draft pick very early on, turned out and acquitted himself very well. And looks like what was a pick made with some intuition. McDaniel, I mean, who has... Everybody's targeting Greer. I mean, how many question marks do you put after McDaniel's name right now when you mention it in a column, Dave Hyde?
Well, I put more after Greer's, but there's plenty for McDaniel too. The culture, the the head coach sets the culture, the day-to-day culture of a team, and from the start, there's so many people who've left that locker room, players, big fans, and the idea is this is a soft team, and that gets right back to McDaniel. It reflects on the way he's running the team, and that's got to change. But there's larger, to me, just design problems with the Dolphins, starting with, well, I mean, this is Greer and McDaniel. Last summer, whoever wanted a contract that wasn't named Javon Holland got more money, got just to be made happy. Basically, they're trying to buy loyalty, and that's from 2 on down and start there. Their biggest contract remains their biggest question, and you can't have that. That just tells you that there's a flaw in the design. When what do you do with Tua right now? He's got concussion issues, hip issues, and look, everybody should have some compassion for injuries. I do, but there's the human side and there's the business side, and when he's has repetitive issues right now, the hip and from earlier in his career to concussions, to you combine that with what is the ceiling on this guy? It's not. He's not an elite quarterback, and so where are they going with this? And meanwhile, they just signed him to this massive contract where they're only bidding against themselves. So Steve Ross, God bless him, he saw that this was a great, well-run franchise, and he wanted to bring it on for another year. So he'll get it for another year.
All right, so the Dolphins are struggling versus a very downtrodden Jets team. This is the second time in a month, less than a month, that was the case. The Broncos are putting away the Chiefs. The Dolphins lose to the Jets, if not immediately, within 30 minutes, because I remember everyone going through Twitter and people were freaking out and losing it. Well, they're gone. Then out of nowhere, Ross swoops in with his freaking statement. What was your reaction in the moment, Dave Hyde? And what did you think should happen with the Miami Dolphins after that loss prior to Stephen Ross's statement?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised at all. But look, go back a few weeks to the San Francisco game when they made a winning play. Ross is on the sidelines pumping his fist and like you'll name it, and then after Super Bowl 3. And then he's in the locker room afterwards giving Mike McDaniel a game ball. That told me, okay, McDaniel's certainly coming back, and probably Greer too, because any owner in my time who's going to make a big change isn't making a public statements and public jubilation over anything. And so when he came out with this statement, the only surprise, I guess, is how quickly it came out after the season, which it really was with a half hour or so. What should have happened? Well, I mean, look, Greer's run this team he had historical advantages of a owner saying tank a season, get draft picks. He had, salary cap money like nobody else. I had a general manager say, God, I wish I had a chance like this. And where's that got them in 6 years? So, I mean, you expect anything progressively better in year 7? I mean, at some point you got to say, okay, this is what he is. And they got, like I said, just it all encapsulates to me in one. The biggest question is the biggest contract, and that's Tua. I mean, they drafted him when they could have got a healthier guy who's now with a good coach is showing you what he can do. And Justin Herbert, but beyond that was a long time ago. So they got him, and now what do you do? They saw that there's health concerns and there's performance questions, and yet they still gave him this massive contract last offseason. So, look, this is the nicest franchise in the history of franchises. They are. You would work for them.
We often said we wanted Stephen Ross to buy the radio station.
I'd love to work for him, Steve. I'm a little short this.
He's great.
I'm a little short these holiday season. Oh, here's a $30 million contract. Here you go.
unbelievable how great this guy is. I mean, yeah, I mean, look, if you have that kind of money, I guess, and you're inclined to be generous, this is a perfect guy. But if he had bought the radio station, it would have been a home run for us. That's for sure. Joe Philbin gets like 4 years. How did Joe Philbin get out of the first interview with Stephen Ross, without Ross saying, Jesus Christ, is there an ounce of personality in this man? No. So
he was hired, as Ross said, because of his quote, and I'm writing a column about these hirings for tomorrow, but he was hired because of his quote, attention to detail. They loved his, what's that where you I can't think of the basically he had a presentation. He had a presentation. And they just loved how attentive and all the detail was. And you saw how attentive to detail Joe Philbin was on Hard Knocks when he was going around picking up litter around a locker, you know. And then I guess
most people thought he was
running their football team, and they got him. You saw how that worked out.
Yeah, he should be one of those environmental guys on Channel 10, like Louis Aguirre or something, right? Picking up garbage on some island in Biscayne Bay. All right, and that's one fire that's brewing right now. The Tyreek Hill thing. Would you imagine, Dave Hyde, that they accommodate him, or is this going to be brushed off and resolved by the fact that he's making a ton of capital here? I don't know. Did his value diminish some after watching this season?
Well, let's start here. I think they'd love to. They have two similar wide receivers, you know, it's size, speed, wide receivers, making a combined $60 million, and they couldn't get the ball to them consistently this year. So what's the worth of having them if you can't consistently get them the ball? Having two of them. So I think they'd love to trade, at least if I was a GM, I'd love to trade Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle for value. The problem is both of them have massive contracts. Jalen Waddle was the seventh highest paid receiver this year. Tyreek was above him. And Tyreek's now going to be 31. So how many teams want a 31-year-old wide receiver, even a Tyreek Hill, making $30 million a year and knowing he's a powder keg of a personality? So I'm not saying they don't want him for that. I guess what I'm saying is, what would you give up to get him? What would they give up? You're not going to get a first-round pick or what you might think you'd get for him. But the Dolphins have to do something again with their design here, because two similar wide receivers making $60 million combined, and you can't get the ball to them. They got to do something.
Well, and you've written recently, and it's sort of what I've been saying. This was before yesterday, just after the occurrence of Saturday when everything sort of hit the fan for the Miami Heat. You've been saying the Miami Dolphins and Miami Heat handle things very differently. Guys were up for extensions last year. The Heat did not give them. The Miami Dolphins did. The Miami Dolphins now are where they are, and the Miami Heat are where they are. It's not news, because it felt like we were heading here with Jimmy Butler. If they're not going to give him an extension, like, he's not going to be happy, but you hoped for his benefit he would play really well, right? Because then someone else will give him the extension, or the Heat may give him the extension then. Instead, he pouted like he's done it every place the last 2 games he played. And then it just came to a head Saturday night after the game. It was a Friday night when he played like utter garbage. He was just standing in the corner, shooting one-legged threes. He's shrugging. Where are you with the Heat with Jimmy Butler? Because we know with the Dolphins, they kowtow. The Heat don't. And the Heat literally, their response was to suspend him for 7 games after his statements of, I just want my joy. I'm not going to get my joy anywhere but here. Like, where are you with that?
You see the two different ways to handle. Look, these are mess. Both of them have messes on their hands. Okay, the Heat have a mess on their hand, and like you said, they had 4 or 5 great years with Jimmy Butler. They went to 2 NBA Finals, an Eastern Conference championship another year, and he was the motor to that. So, and now it's time to pay the piper. Meaning, You knew this was coming at some point with Jimmy. Just as you said, it happens everywhere. He leaves town in a bad way, and the question for the Heat was, were you going to keep extending Jimmy Butler as he gets older, 35, 30s, extend him into 36 into 37 when his game is clearly diminishing, and yet pay him a massive amount of money over, I don't know what the $50 million, I think it's 2 years, $104 million, I don't have the numbers right, but it's in that neighborhood. It's massive. And tie up the franchise for the next few years when you couldn't win big. And Riley said no. So he held the line. And so, like you said, there's no great surprise here. This is completely about money. Forget about Jimmy. I want the joy of basketball back and all that nonsense. He wants a contract. He'd go to Tibet if he got that contract. With the Dolphins, it's they gave everybody money. Anybody last summer with a handout got it. Jalen Ramsey had 2 more years left on his contract, which was just done a year ago when they traded for him. And they redid his contract to make him the highest paid cornerback. Waddle got his money, and he had to be paid probably because he was going into his 5th year, and that's when good rookies get paid. But then they decided, since Waddle got more money, we got to give Tyreek Hill more money. And Tua was going around the markets to market because Trevor Lawrence got $50 million. He should get $50 million. And for some reason, the Dolphins just bid against themselves. Why would you follow Jacksonville as the model franchise? Seriously, is that the model of a franchise you want to follow? And they gave Tua $50 million. If Tua goes on the market, does he get anything close to? Does anybody? I'm not sure who would be bidding on him. So, the Dolphins have. Warren Buffett has a line: when you dig a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging. The Dolphins just kept digging and digging and digging. But yeah, it's two different ways to run it. And look, Pat Riley's not going to put up with nonsense, and that's how championship teams at some point have to set the standard of, okay, we're not going there, and it's a mess, and they got to deal with it, and we'll see how they get out of it. But Riley and the Heat, they've done it before. They're the team over the last quarter century, 30 years, whatever, that's won the most in town for a reason. They know how to do it. And the Dolphins for the last quarter century haven't won a playoff game.
Yeah, it's easier to get snookered in the NBA because you got the smaller roster. And
sure.
Yeah, I feel like the Dolphins definitely snookered themselves. If they didn't make the advances this year that you would have anticipated, which we boldly predicted they would win the AFC East, of course, with the decline of the Buffalo Bills, which was evident throughout the season, Dave.
That's exactly what I said.
You're sober, man.
This is the year.
You're
Yeah,
lying about everything.
And the Jets were going to suck. I mean, because they're the Jets, and the Patriots were a fine mess, which leads us to one last thing here, and that is, of course, today is Black Monday. Now, we saw it didn't even get to today for the New England Patriots, whose hand-picked guy, holy Jimbo Fisher, they eventually soured on. I mean, it didn't take any time at all. A horrible season, and then compounded by winning on the final day of the regular season and losing a shot at the number 1 overall pick, and they dropped it down to number 4. So you couldn't have screwed things up any more than they did with this Mayo thing. Many others, speculation. I'm not sure, how heavily you get into this, but Jacksonville, they're probably, Doug Peterson, Gonzo?
They already fired him. They just fired him right before I came on the air.
Oh, they did? Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So at least we were close on our speculation there. I don't know that Dallas fires McCarthy. I really, and I'm not sure. I mean, when you look at his overall record, he hasn't been that horrible. Just that when you look at him on the sidelines, you're thinking this guy's going to be outcoached by virtually anybody, maybe even Mike McDaniel. Dayball, once he lost the weight, he wasn't just – What's that?
Yeah. Put a bib on him, and he could be running the barbecue place, right?
Doesn't it look like, yeah, some guy that says, "Who wants the brisket? They got one last cut." Raiders, you got to figure Antonio Pierce, not overwhelmingly impressive. Didn't have a lot to work with there, and the Titans had Bill Callahan. They subjected him to being their head coach for 1 year so far, 3-14. But do you expect any real surprises there in terms of turnover in the head coaching position?
Well, I mean, the Patriots.
Yeah, because Mike Vrabel all of a sudden is Lombardi. Mike Vrabel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he goes to the Patriots, which is what it's pointing at, that's not good news for the Dolphins. He will have a tough team. And they got a quarterback who they love. I talked to someone in the New England when I saw him at a game, and they said there's no doubt they think they got their quarterback. Right. So we'll see. But it's hilarious. The Patriots. So they're let's think of the logic of this. They're going to fire Jerod Mayo at the end of the game yesterday.
Yeah.
And yet they let him coach the game when they have the number one pick. And he coaches to win. He coaches to win. All they do is they want to lose and hold on to the number one pick. And then they can control the draft. Do they take Travis Hunter? Do they trade to a team wanting a quarterback? They got a lot of options. And instead, they let Mayo coach the game. And he coaches to win rather than just having some schlub in there saying, as Steve Ross did, we'll give you $100,000 to lose.
There you go.
It's and so then they win the game. After the game, they fire Mayo. I mean, why wouldn't they do that before the game? I don't understand that.
Could have fired him at halftime.
Talk about Mayo's revenge. Mayo got his revenge on them.
Yes,
by winning that game.
Yes, he did.
Great is that? Yeah, that's Brian Flores all over again, only shorter term. I mean, you couldn't screw up a season any more than that. And to have the number one pick sitting at your doorstep, and every reason to go ahead and lose to a superior team, and they go out there and they win the ball game. Unbelievable. Dave, always a pleasure. Now, where can we find you online? Newspaper delivery is getting very suspect as I'm this close to canceling my 20-year subscription to the New York Post because of shoddy delivery. And I believe it's handled by the Sun Sentinel people. I don't want to put any thing out there. I want to be more like Stephen Rose. Hey, it's fine. Don't bring the paper for 10 days. I'll never make a call. Don't worry.
Yeah, we should be delivering coffee with anybody still reading the paper.
I think it's time.
They do have this thing called the internet, where you can read online. I know.
Yeah, I'm thinking my vision is already, sort of anticipating. When it comes to reading really small things, I used to be able to, reading the racing form my whole life. You can read that crap in the dark. I mean, and it's hieroglyphics to a lot of people. So yeah, I'm reluctant. I still like unfolding a newspaper for some reason. Especially a tabloid, that's just one of those connections to the past there that I find just as pleasurable as it can be in terms of getting my sports news in the morning. But where do we find you now? Online? We can subscribe. Is that still going with $1 for like 6 months? Because I may have to explore that option.
They do run ads like that, just all the same place, sunsentinel.com, social media, Twitter, Dave Hyde Sports. Et cetera, et cetera. I'm not hard. I'm out there.
All right. Well, it's a good thing there's not much to write about in town.
Oh, God.
You've got all the characters.
Never stops.
Could you ask for more? You got Riley upset. You got heat culture being questioned.
You need to get into Cristobal and the Canes.
Right. There you go. There's another one. Just a quick question. When you do the tail of the tape,
he said, "Can he learn
like
to
a head
talk?"
Coach. Can he please? I mean, the way they addressed Cam Ward at the end of last year, playing a half, made no sense.
There's another one. Yeah,
that's a whole different issue. We don't even need to go down there. We got enough of it.
I'll just fan the flame negativity here. But I want to finish with this because we've been speculating on this, and we've been playing this clip since the middle of last year, actually. When we said it on the air. And that is Belichick and Cristobal. Tail of the tape. You have to make the check mark. Who has the advantage in coaching when North Carolina faces the Canes? Where is Dave Hyde's check mark? coaching.
Say that again. Who am I picking to win?
Belichick or Cristobal. You have to do that. You know who has the advantage. Who has the offense, defense, special teams, coaching.
Oh my
Are
God.
you kidding me? Are you
Where's the
kidding?
check mark going? And how many checks will you put in the box?
I'm just drawing a straight line down Belichick. He gets old.
Just straight down.
I mean, come on.
That's got to be a great assignment, man. I can't wait to see that. If it comes, I don't know if they're on the schedule this year.
They play this year.
No,
They are. The first thing I did when Belichick was hired at North Carolina, I called up the UM schedule. They don't play next year.
Oh,
I was very disappointed.
Oh wow. Okay.
well, there goes one day's worth of graphics in the sports section. All right, kiddo. Good stuff as always.
All right.
Always a pleasure.
Talk to you guys.
Happy New Year.
Thanks a lot, Dave Hyde, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that was good, Lubie. I enjoyed that thoroughly. I don't know about you.
No, I mean, there's a lot going on, and he's a guy that covers it all. I knew we wouldn't have enough time to get to all of it. I don't know. It's just weird that we were a disaster a few years ago, and then we looked like we were rebounding, and everyone was winning.
I'm sort of excited. I mean, it goes back to when did this start to really, thin out? And that was after week 2 last year. Wasn't it? I mean, when they scored the 70 on Denver, did you not think that, hey, maybe times have finally changed?
Yeah. What do you mean? Last year, the first half of the year, they were considered like the best team in football at one point.
Yeah,
remember?
he looked like a genius. He really did. Now he looks completely. We lead the league in the coaches on the sidelines who look completely bewildered.
I'm so lost
and almost searching for help somewhere. Right? Cristobal and McDaniel both have that look on their face, that stunned look of disbelief when things start to go haywire the wrong direction. All right, now we have to run. Thanks so much for being with us. Black Monday. So Peterson already went down. Wow.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but I wouldn't lie. So
if I had said it, I'm buying it. 22-38 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Horrible. McCarthy, I think, stays. What do you think, Libby? I don't think Jerry's going to.
Yeah, no, I don't know why. I don't know what he's doing there that gives you confidence, but Jerry Jones doesn't give a shit.
They like Dayball in New York, and yet he's 18-32. What do you say there? Dayball.
And I liked him too. He was another guy that the Dolphins flirted with before they went with McDaniel. I don't know if it's all his fault. I don't think he was even involved in drafting Daniel Jones, but they're just going backwards. I don't know. Again, I don't know if he's the guy that's going to fix it.
Did you ever meet this guy, the Beast, when he was doing radio? The Beast?
I didn't know him. I knew of him.
Dayball looks a little bit. He reminds me every time I see Dayball. Although he's lost some weight, but in his previous stature, he looked a little bit. He reminded me. I thought the Beast was coaching the New York Giants. I really did. And the Titans. I mean, what do you do with this guy Callahan? They give him 1 year. That's it. I mean, what are you going to do there? You're going to transition every year. They were horrible this year, and Will Levis. I mean, just an atrocity. Not much to work with there as he goes 3-14, and the Titans, I believe, were also the worst team in the league against the spread. They weren't much better than their ugly record. I think they might have covered one spread in a game where, they were obviously getting a very generous allotment of points. All right, man. Pleasure. I will do it again tomorrow. Thanks so much, everybody, for being with us. For Mike Lubitz, Dave Hyde, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
I don't buy.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.